The diplomatic ship moved slowly through space toward the massive station ahead. Jake Morrison stood at the window and watched the alien structure grow larger. It was bigger than any city he had ever seen. Lights flickered across its surface, like stars. This was Nexus Prime, home of the Galactic Council. Jake felt nervous but tried not to show it. He was Earth's ambassador, and today would decide humanity's future among the stars. For 3 years, humans had been asking to join the galactic community. Today they would get their answer. "Sir, we're getting close," said Captain Lisa Carter from behind him. She commanded the escort ship that followed them. Her voice sounded calm, but Jake knew she was worried too. They all were. "Thank you, Captain," Jake replied. He turned away from the window and walked to where Dr. Paul Bennett sat studying his notes. Paul was their expert on alien life. He had spent months learning about the different species they would meet today. "How are you feeling, Paul?" Jake asked. "Ready as I'll ever be," Paul said with a small smile. "The Zephyrians control most of the council. They're the ones we need to convince." Jake nodded. The Zephyrians were reptile-like creatures with tough scales and sharp teeth. They had the biggest military in the galaxy. What they said usually became law. The ship docked with a soft bump. Jake straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Let's go make history," he said. The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of beings from different worlds sat in circles that rose up like a stadium. Jake had never seen so many alien species in one place. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that he could barely understand what he was looking at. At the EO center sat 3 groups that mattered most. The Zephyrians occupied the largest section. Their leader, War Marshal Krex, was twice the size of a human. His dark green scales gleamed under the lights. His yellow eyes watched Jake with what looked like amusement. The Nexari were made of living crystal. They sparkled and chimed softly when they moved. Their thoughts moved through their crystal bodies like colored light. The Vorthak were harder to see. They were made of gas and energy, contained in special suits that let them exist in solid space. Jake walked to the speaking platform in the center. His footsteps echoed in the huge room. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. He felt very small and very human. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake began. His voice was amplified so everyone could hear. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, speaking for humanity and Earth. We come before you today seeking friendship and partnership among the stars." A low rumble came from the Zephyrian section. War Marshal Krex stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening. "The Council has studied humanity for 3 years," Krex said. "We have seen your wars. We have seen your violence. We have seen how you destroy your own planet and fight among yourselves." Jake felt his heart sink. This was not starting well. Krex continued, "Humans are dangerous. They are unpredictable. They cannot be trusted with advanced technology or membership in civilized society." The War Marshal pressed a button on his chair. A holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed images from Earth's history: wars, explosions, cities burning, people fighting. Jake recognized some of the scenes, but others looked wrong, like they had been changed to make humans look worse. "These images prove that humans are naturally violent," Krex declared. "They will bring chaos to the galaxy if we allow them to spread." Jake stood up straighter. "War Marshal Krex, with respect, those images do not tell the whole story. Yes, humans have fought wars, but we have also made peace. We have also helped each other. We have also built beautiful things and discovered amazing truths about the universe." Some aliens in the chamber made sounds that might have been agreement. Others remained silent. Krex's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words cannot hide ugly truth. The Council has decided humanity will not be granted membership. Furthermore, human expansion beyond your solar system must stop immediately." The chamber fell silent. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. This was worse than rejection. This was imprisonment. "You will submit to Zephyrian oversight," Krex continued. "Our ships will monitor your system. Our officials will approve any new technology. This is for the good of the galaxy. Jake looked around the chamber. The Nexari crystal beings dimmed their lights. The Vorthax swirled nervously in their containment suits. None of them spoke up for humanity. They were all afraid of the Zephyrians. Dr. Bennett whispered urgently from his seat. Jake, they're treating us like prisoners, not potential allies. Captain Carter's voice came through Jake's earpiece from her ship. Ambassador, my sensors show Zephyrian warships moving toward the edge of human space. This isn't just a threat. They're already positioning for action. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. He had come here in peace, hoping to make friends. Instead, he found bullies who wanted to cage humanity like dangerous animals. He stepped forward on the platform. His voice was still calm, but now it carried an edge of steel. War Marshal Krex, members of the Galactic Council, we came here seeking friendship and cooperation. We offered to share our knowledge, our culture, our discoveries. We hoped to learn from you and contribute to galactic civilization. The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the soft sounds from the various alien species had stopped. Jake continued, but if you prefer conflict to cooperation, if you choose to see us as enemies rather than potential friends, then you will discover something about humanity that your studies may have missed. War Marshal Krex leaned forward. And what is that? Little human? Jake met the alien's yellow eyes without flinching. You will learn what humans become when they are threatened. You will see what we are capable of when we fight not for conquest, but for survival and freedom. The War Marshal laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. You threaten the Galactic Council? You and your primitive ships? I make no threats, Jake replied quietly. I simply tell you the truth. We came here seeking friendship. If you choose to make us your enemies instead, then you shall witness what humanity becomes when faced with extinction. Jake turned and walked away from the platform. Dr. Bennett and the other humans followed him. Behind them, the chamber erupted in alien voices, some angry, some worried, some curious. As they left Nexus Prime, Captain Carter spoke over the radio. Ambassador, that was either very brave or very stupid. Jake watched the alien station shrink behind them. Maybe both, Captain. But they needed to know that humans don't surrender easily. What do we do now? Dr. Bennett asked. Jake straightened his shoulders. Now we go home and prepare for war. Because I think that's exactly what they're planning to give us. The journey back to Earth felt longer than the trip out. Jake Morrison sat in his cabin aboard the diplomatic ship, writing his report. Every word felt heavy. He was about to tell his entire species that they had failed to find peace among the stars. Captain Lisa Carter knocked on his door. Ambassador, we're receiving priority messages from Earth. Fleet Admiral Kate Sullivan wants to speak with you immediately. Jake sighed and followed her to the communication room. The holographic image of Admiral Sullivan appeared, her face serious. Behind her stood President Richard Hayes, looking older than Jake remembered. Ambassador Morrison, Admiral Sullivan began. We've been monitoring Zephyrian fleet movements. They have ships moving toward our outer system. What happened at the council? Jake told them everything. About War Marshal Krex's ultimatum. About the other species being too afraid to help. About how the Zephyrians wanted to cage humanity like dangerous animals. President Hayes shook his head. So diplomacy has failed completely. I'm afraid so, Mr. President, Jake replied. They see us as a threat that must be controlled or destroyed. Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. How much time do we have? Their ships are already at the edge of our system, Captain Carter reported. Maybe days, maybe hours before they make their move. Dr. Paul Bennett, who had been quiet during the conversation, suddenly spoke up. There's something else you need to know. Something I discovered while we were at Nexus Prime. Everyone turned to look at him. Paul's face was pale but determined. I managed to access some of their historical records, he continued. The Zephyrians have done this before, 17 times in the past 1,000 years. They find a species that might challenge them someday. They offer impossible terms. When the species refuses, they attack and conquer them. 17 species? President Hayes asked quietly. All gone now? Paul nodded. either destroyed completely or turned into slave worlds. The Zephyrians tell the galaxy that these species were dangerous and had to be stopped. No one questions them because they control the most powerful military. Admiral Sullivan's expression hardened. So this was planned from the beginning. They never intended to let us join the council. That's not the worst part, Paul continued. I also learned why they always win. Every species they attacked tried to fight them the same way. Big fleets meeting in space. Traditional military tactics. The Zephyrians have had 1,000 years to perfect their strategy against that kind of warfare. Jake felt a spark of hope. But humans don't fight traditionally, do we? Admiral Sullivan smiled grimly. No, we don't. Paul, did you learn anything about their technology? Some, Paul replied. Their ships are heavily armored and carry powerful weapons, but they're designed for fighting other aliens who follow the same rules of warfare that they do. They expect their enemies to line up and fight fairly. Humans don't believe in fair fights, Captain Carter said. We believe in winning. President Hayes nodded slowly. Admiral Sullivan, how ready are our defenses? More ready than the Zephyrians think, she replied. We've been preparing for this possibility ever since first contact. Commander Alex Turner has been working on special projects. As if summoned by his name, another holographic figure appeared. Commander Turner was a young engineer with bright eyes and oil-stained hands. He looked excited despite the serious situation. Mr. President Admiral, we've been busy, Turner said. Remember how everyone thought we were just mining asteroids and building research stations? Well, we were, but we were also building other things. What kind of other things? Jake asked. Turner grinned. The kind that go boom when aliens get too close to Earth. We've got weapon platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt, manufacturing facilities that can build new ships faster than anyone expects. And we've been modifying every piece of technology we have based on what we learned from alien visitors over the years. Admiral Sullivan took over the explanation. When we realized that first contact might not go well, we started Project Phoenix. Every mining ship has hidden weapons. Every research station has defensive systems. Every commercial vessel can be converted to military use in hours. The aliens think we have a few hundred military ships, Commander Turner added. They don't know that we can turn our entire civilian fleet into a fighting force. Dr. Bennett looked amazed. How many ships are we really talking about? Officially, about 300 military vessels, Admiral Sullivan replied. Unofficially, if we convert everything we have, nearly 10,000 ships of various sizes. President Hayes whistled softly. That changes things considerably. Captain Carter's communication device beeped. She listened for a moment, then looked up with a grim expression. The Zephyrian fleet has just passed Jupiter. They're broadcasting a surrender demand. What do they want? Jake asked. Complete submission. All human weapons to be destroyed. All human ships to be scrapped except for basic transport. Earth to be placed under direct Zephyrian control. The room fell silent. Finally, President Hayes spoke. Admiral Sullivan, begin Protocol 7. Yes, sir, she replied. All hidden installations are now active. General Maria Santos is mobilizing our defense fleets. Commander Turner, how long until the civilian conversions are complete? Most of them are already done, Turner said proudly. We just need to activate the weapon systems and upload the new targeting software. Jake stood up straighter. What about the other species, the 17 that the Zephyrians conquered? Dr. Bennett's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. If we could contact them, let them know that someone is finally fighting back. One thing at a time, Admiral Sullivan said. First, we survive the initial attack. Then we think about liberating the galaxy. Captain Carter received another message. The Zephyrian fleet is demanding a response to their surrender terms. War Marshal Krex wants an answer within 6 hours, President. Hayes looked around the room at the faces of Earth's defenders. Well, we know our answer. The question is how we deliver it. Jake Morrison thought about the arrogant War Marshal, and his yellow eyes filled with contempt for humanity. I think I know exactly how to respond. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Good. Because in 6 hours we're going to show the Zephyrians what humans do when backed into a corner. Outside the ship's windows, Earth grew larger. Home, worth fighting for. Worth dying for if necessary. But Jake Morrison had no intention of dying. He had every intention of winning. War Marshal Krex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Dominator. Through the viewing screen he could see the red planet that humans called Mars. Beyond it, the small blue world that was their home. "How many ships do the humans have?" he asked his tactical officer. "Our scans show approximately 300 military vessels, War Marshal. They appear to be gathering near their home planet." Krex laughed, a sound like grinding stone. 300 ships, against our fleet of 2,000. This will be over quickly. The Dominator was 10 times larger than the biggest human ship. Its weapons could destroy entire cities. Its armor could withstand attacks from a dozen enemy vessels. Krex had used ships like this to conquer 17 different species. The humans would be number 18. "Open a channel to the human homeworld," Krex ordered. The communication screen flickered to life. Instead of showing the human leaders cowering in fear, it showed a single human ship. Captain Lisa Carter appeared on the screen, standing calmly on her bridge. "This is Captain Carter of the Earth Defense Force," she said. "You are trespassing in human space." Krex was amused. One small human challenging his entire fleet. "Human, I am War Marshal Krex of the Zephyrian Empire. You have 6 hours to surrender completely or face destruction." Captain Carter smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "War Marshal, you said you wanted to see what humans do when threatened. Congratulations, you're about to find out." The screen went dark. Krex stared at it for a moment, then shrugged. "Begin the attack. Destroy their military ships first, then their cities." But as his fleet moved forward, something unexpected happened. The space around Mars suddenly filled with explosions. Hidden weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids opened fire. Zephyrian ships that had been leading the attack were hit by weapons they never saw coming. "What is happening?" Krex roared. "Weapon platforms, sir. Hundreds of them hidden throughout the asteroid belt. They're using mining charges as weapons." More explosions rocked the Zephyrian fleet. The humans had turned simple mining equipment into deadly weapons. Asteroid processing plants became missile launchers. Research stations revealed hidden gun batteries. Commander Alex Turner watched from his command center deep inside an asteroid. Phase 1 complete. All hidden weapons are active. Beginning Phase 2. Suddenly, the space around the Zephyrian fleet filled with ships. Not just the 300 military vessels they had detected, but thousands of civilian ships that had been modified for war, mining ships with armor plating and weapons, passenger liners converted into carriers, even small personal craft equipped with missiles. "Impossible!" Krex shouted. "Where did all these ships come from?" His tactical officer was panic-stricken. "They must have been hiding inside the asteroid belt. Our sensors couldn't detect them among all the rocks and metal." Captain Carter's voice came over the communication system again. "Surprise, War Marshal. Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." The human fleet attacked in ways that made no sense to Zephyrian military thinking. Instead of forming neat battle lines, they swarmed like angry insects. Small ships attacked from all directions. Larger vessels used the asteroid belt for cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Commander Rachel Stone led a squadron of fighter craft in an attack run on the Dominator itself. Her ships were tiny compared to the massive dreadnought, but they moved fast and unpredictably. "Remember, people," she said over the radio, "we're not trying to destroy it. We're trying to annoy it to death." Her fighters fired their weapons at the Dominator's sensor arrays and communication equipment. Each hit was small, but hundreds of small hits added up. The great ship began to lose its ability to coordinate with the rest of the fleet. Engineer Commander Turner had been working on another surprise. "Admiral Sullivan, the special modifications are ready." "Excellent. Begin Phase 3. Throughout the human fleet, ships began firing weapons that looked familiar, but acted strangely. The Zephyrians had designed their shields to stop normal energy weapons, but the humans had modified their weapons based on alien technology they had studied for years. Instead of pure energy beams, the human weapons fired concentrated bursts that passed right through Zephyrian shields. Instead of explosive missiles, they used projectiles that punched through armor like it was paper. How are they doing this? Krex demanded as his ships began taking heavy damage. Their weapons are wrong. His tactical officer replied. They're not following proper physics. Physics doesn't care about proper, Captain Carter's voice responded. Somehow the humans were listening to Zephyrian communications. Physics just cares about what works. The battle raged for hours. Every time the Zephyrians tried a new tactic, the humans adapted. When the aliens formed defensive formations, human ships attacked from unexpected angles. When they tried to retreat, mines that had been hidden in their path exploded. War Marshal Krex watched his fleet being torn apart by an enemy that refused to fight the way they were supposed to. These humans used every dirty trick imaginable. They hid behind asteroids. They used their own damaged ships as weapons. They even launched escape pods filled with explosives. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving messages from the conquered worlds. The humans are broadcasting to all 17 species we control. What kind of messages? They're telling them that the Zephyrian Empire can be defeated. They're asking them to rise up and fight for their freedom. Krex felt fear for the first time in his life. This wasn't just a battle anymore, this was the beginning of a revolution. Captain Carter appeared on his screen again. Her ship was damaged, but she was still fighting. War Marshal Krex, she said, you made a mistake. You thought humans were just another species you could bully. But humans have something your other enemies didn't have. What? Krex asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Hope, Carter replied, and we're very good at sharing it. Around the Dominator, the human fleet continued its relentless attack. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Crews that should have surrendered kept trying new tactics. Krex realized with growing horror that he might actually lose this battle. In 1,000 years of conquest, no species had ever fought back this effectively. Send a message to the homeworld, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcements. But even as he gave the order, he wondered if more ships would be enough. The humans weren't just fighting with weapons and technology. They were fighting with something else entirely. They were fighting with the desperate courage of a species that refused to give up. News of the battle at Mars spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On 17 different worlds, beings who had been slaves for centuries looked up at the stars with something they had almost forgotten. Hope. Dr. Paul Bennett worked frantically in his new laboratory aboard the converted research station New Geneva. Around him, alien technology mixed with human engineering in ways that should have been impossible. But humans had always been good at making impossible things work. Admiral Sullivan, he called over the communication system. I've got good news and bad news. Admiral Kate Sullivan's image appeared on his screen. Behind her, the command center buzzed with activity as Earth prepared for the next attack. Give me the bad news first, Paul. War Marshal Krex sent messages to the Zephyrian homeworld. They're sending their entire battle fleet. We're talking about 50,000 ships, not 2,000. Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a moment. And the good news? Paul smiled. I figured out how their faster-than-light communication works. We can now talk to any world in the galaxy instantly. How does that help us against 50,000 ships? Because 17 conquered species are waiting to hear from us. And Admiral, they have ships too. Hidden ships. Secret weapons. Everything. They've been saving for the day someone finally stood up to the Zephyrians. Meanwhile, Captain Sam Rodriguez led his strike force deeper into space than any human had ever gone. His mission was dangerous, but important. Find Zephyrian supply lines and destroy them. Captain, his navigator reported, we've found something. A convoy of supply ships heading toward their main fleet. Rodriguez studied the sensor readings. 12 cargo ships carrying fuel, weapons, and replacement parts. Only 2 escort fighters. The Zephyrians were so confident that they barely protected their supplies. All ships, attack formation Delta. Remember, we hit hard and fast, then disappear before they can call for help. The human ships swept down on the convoy like hawks attacking mice. Rodriguez's modified destroyer led the charge, its weapons tearing through Zephyrian armor like paper. Within minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. That's the 5th supply convoy this week, his tactical officer reported with satisfaction. Good, Rodriguez replied. Every ship we destroy here is one less shooting at Earth. Back on Earth's moon, Colonel Amy Parker watched her soldiers prepare defensive positions. The Zephyrians would eventually try to land ground troops, and she intended to be ready for them. Colonel, Sergeant Billy Martinez called out, the new weapons are ready for testing. Parker walked over to examine the strange-looking devices. They had been built using captured Zephyrian technology combined with human creativity. Instead of the elegant energy weapons the aliens preferred, these looked like something built in a garage. What do they do? She asked. They disrupt Zephyrian armor from the inside out, Martinez explained. Instead of trying to punch through their protection, we make their own equipment work against them. Parker nodded approvingly. Typical human. Solution. If you can't break down the door, rewire the lock. In space, Engineer Commander Alex Turner put the finishing touches on his latest project. He had been working with captured Zephyrian ships, learning how their technology worked and how to turn it against them. Admiral Sullivan, he reported, the conversion is complete. We now have 12 Zephyrian ships flying under human control. Excellent work, Alex. How did you manage it? Turner grinned. The Zephyrians build everything the same way. Once you understand their basic systems, you can take control of any of their ships. It's like they never expected anyone to capture their technology. Because no one ever had before, Admiral Sullivan realized. Every species they conquered, they destroyed completely. No one was left to study their methods. The breakthrough came when Turner successfully decoded the Zephyrian communication networks. Suddenly, humans could listen to every message sent. Between alien ships and planets, Dr. Bennett used this advantage to contact the enslaved species throughout the galaxy. His first message went out to all 17 conquered worlds at the same time. People of the galaxy, his voice said in dozens of different languages. This is Dr. Paul Bennett of Earth. Humanity is fighting the Zephyrian Empire. We are winning. If you want to be free, now is the time to act. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hidden rebel groups on every conquered world began attacking Zephyrian installations. Ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels revealed their true nature as warships. Weapons that had been buried for generations were dug up and prepared for battle. On the crystal world of Nexar Prime, the beings of living crystal sang battle songs that had been silent for 300 years. Their ships, beautiful and deadly, emerged from hidden caves beneath their cities. On the gas giant Vorthak Major, the energy beings flowed through space itself, surrounding Zephyrian ships and disrupting their power systems from within. Even more surprising, some Zephyrian soldiers began to desert. These were mostly from species that the Zephyrians had conquered and forced to fight for them. Now they saw a chance to turn against their masters. War Marshal Krex received reports of rebellion from every corner of his empire. His own ships were being attacked by enemies he thought no longer existed. Supply lines were cut. Communication networks were compromised. Entire star systems were declaring independence. How did this happen? He demanded of his advisors. The humans, War Marshal. They have united our enemies against us. Krex stared at the tactical display showing his crumbling empire. Red dots indicated rebel activity. Yellow showed lost communications. Green areas under Zephyrian control were shrinking. By the hour, send a message to the homeworld, he ordered. Tell them we need every ship we have. This is no longer a simple conquest. This is a war for the survival of our empire. But even as he gave the order, Krex knew it might be too late. The humans had done something no other species had managed in 1,000 years. They had given the galaxy hope. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of her newly upgraded ship. Around her, the combined fleet of humanity and its new allies prepared for the final battle. Ships from 18 different species flew together, united by their desire for freedom. Admiral Sullivan, she reported, the main Zephyrian fleet is approaching. 50,000 ships, just as Dr. Bennett predicted. How many ships do we have? Admiral Sullivan asked. Carter smiled. 30,000 from the allied species, 10,000 human ships, and something the Zephyrians don't know about yet, which is War Marshal Krex's own ships. Commander Turner has been very busy spreading his computer programs through their communication network. When the battle starts, about 5,000 Zephyrian ships are going to switch sides. Admiral Sullivan laughed. Leave it to humans to turn the enemy's weapons against them. The final battle was about to begin. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire faced an enemy that could actually win. The space near Jupiter had never seen anything like it. Thousands of ships from dozens of different worlds formed the largest battle fleet in galactic history. At the center flew Ambassador Jake Morrison aboard the rebuilt Starward-bound, now armed and ready for war. Across from them, the Zephyrian Empire's main fleet stretched as far as the eye could see. 50,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of destruction. War Marshal Krex commanded from his super dreadnought, a ship so large it had its own gravity. This is it, Admiral Kate Sullivan announced from her flagship. Today, we decide the future of the galaxy. Captain Lisa Carter checked her instruments one more time. Around her ship flew vessels from 17 different species, all united by one goal: freedom from Zephyrian rule. All ships report ready, she announced. Human fleet ready, allied fleet ready, and Commander Turner confirms that our special surprise is in position. War Marshal Krex opened communications to the entire battle area. His voice boomed across space, full of anger and confidence. Rebels and humans, he declared, you face the full might of the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered the galaxy for 1,000 years. We have destroyed countless species who dared to challenge us. Surrender now, and some of you may live as slaves. Ambassador Morrison stepped forward on his bridge. This was the moment he had been preparing for since the failed peace talks. War Marshal Krex, Jake replied, his voice calm but carrying across all communication channels. You wanted war, believing it would break us. You thought fear would make us submit like all the others. The space between the two fleets crackled with tension. Thousands of ships waited for the order to attack. Jake continued, but you made a mistake. You discovered that humanity's true strength isn't our weapons or our ships. It's our refusal to abandon each other or those who need our help. War Marshal Krex laughed. Pretty words will not save you from destruction, human. You brought us war, Jake said, his voice growing stronger. And in return, we brought you something you've never faced before. Hope for your victims and justice, for your crimes. You want war? Then face destruction. The battle began instantly, but not the way anyone expected. Commander Alex Turner activated his secret program. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, ships that had been infected with human computer codes suddenly turned on their own allies. 5,000 Zephyrian vessels opened fire on their former comrades. What is happening? Krex screamed as his own ships attacked each other. Human technology, his tactical officer reported in panic. They've taken control of our ships. But that was only the beginning. The Allied fleet attacked with the fury of beings who had been enslaved for centuries. Crystal ships from Nexar Prime fired beams of pure light. Gas beings from Vorthak flowed through space, surrounding enemy vessels and draining their power. Captain Sam Rodriguez led his strike force straight at the Zephyrian command ship. His small vessels dodged between the massive alien guns, too fast and too small to hit easily. Remember, he called to his pilots, we're not trying to destroy it. We're trying to get inside it. His fighters fired special missiles that didn't explode. Instead, they buried themselves in the enemy ship's hull and began cutting through the armor. Within minutes, human soldiers were boarding the Zephyrian flagship. Colonel Amy Parker led the assault team through the alien corridors. The Zephyrians had never fought enemies inside their own ships before. They didn't know how to handle close combat with humans who used every dirty trick they could think of. Remember, she shouted to her soldiers, we need War Marshal Krex alive. He's going to help us end this war. The space battle raged around them. Human ships worked together with their alien allies in perfect coordination. When Zephyrian vessels tried to form defensive lines, Human fighters slipped through their formations like ghosts. When alien ships needed support, human vessels appeared from unexpected directions. Dr. Paul Bennett coordinated the alliance from his command center. His screen showed the battle from 100 different angles. Admiral Sullivan, he reported, "We're winning. The Zephyrian fleet is breaking apart. But there's something else. I'm receiving surrender messages from Zephyrian worlds throughout the galaxy. Surrender messages? Their empire is collapsing. Every conquered species is rising up at once. The Zephyrians can't fight everywhere at the same time." On the flagship, Colonel Parker's team had fought their way to the bridge. War Marshal Krex stood surrounded by his defeated officers, his yellow eyes filled with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We cannot be defeated." "You were defeated the moment you chose bullying over friendship," Parker replied. "Now you're going to help us fix the damage you've done." Admiral Sullivan's voice came over all communication channels. "Attention all Zephyrian ships. Your war marshal has been captured. Your empire is finished. Any ship that surrenders immediately will be treated fairly. Any ship that continues fighting will be destroyed." One by one, Zephyrian vessels stopped, shooting and powered down their weapons. Some tried to run, but the Allied fleet was everywhere. There was nowhere to hide. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the end of a 1,000-year tyranny. Around him, ships from dozens of worlds celebrated together. "Dr. Bennett," he called, "open a channel to the entire galaxy." When the connection was established, Jake spoke to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. "People of the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire has fallen. You are free. But freedom is not something you can be given. It's something you must choose every day. We invite you to join us in building something better than an empire. A true galactic community where every species has a voice." War Marshal Krex was brought to the bridge in chains. He looked at the celebrating fleet with confusion. "I don't understand," he said to Jake. "Why aren't you destroying our worlds? Why aren't you making us your slaves? That's what conquerors do." Jake shook his head. "That's what you did. Humans do things differently. We believe that making friends is better than making slaves." 6 months later, the first meeting of the new Galactic Council took place on a space station, built by cooperation between 12 different species. Ambassador Jake Morrison watched as beings who had been enemies learned to work together. Dr. Paul Bennett had established research stations where scientists from across the galaxy shared knowledge freely. Captain Lisa Carter led exploration missions to discover new worlds and new friends. The former Zephyrian worlds were rebuilding themselves as free nations. Even some Zephyrians had joined the new alliance, grateful to be free from their own empires. Brutality. War Marshal Krex, now a prisoner working to help repair the damage he had caused, asked Jake one final question. "How did you know you could win? We had more ships, better weapons, 1,000 years of experience." Jake smiled and looked out at the space station where children from a dozen species played together. "Because we weren't fighting for conquest or glory. We were fighting for something worth dying for, and more importantly, something worth living for." The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to protect and the wisdom to turn enemies into friends.